Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Thursday, which means it's time for a new FL Basics tutorial. I want to remind you that Saturday, which will have another FL Basics, is also when the live stream happens, which will be at 6 p.m. EST -5 GMT. I also want to say that I started a gaming channel on the side. This is something I tried again. This is something I tried in the past, and this is something I'm doing again now. I think I'm doing a little bit better job. Um, if you want specifics about how this works, I'll link you to the relevant Facebook post in my description about it. I'm not going to talk a huge amount about it because I kind of want to keep it separate. It's a whole new channel. It's not this YouTube channel, so gaming stuff isn't going to be on this channel. But if you are interested in seeing me do gaming stuff, then go to that channel. So I'll have that link in the description for things. And yeah, so moving on, today's about the peak controller, which is this guy. So what does the peak controller do? The peak controller reads incoming audio and then applies the peak information, like the volume level, the levels of the audio, as controller data. And it does this pretty simply. So by default, this mute option is on. And I have a kick drum here, and actually you can see that it's reading the data, but it's also muting the audio. So turn off mute. So now I want to sidechain the kick to the ARP. That's what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to this volume level here. I'm going to link the controller. I'm going to link it to the peak of the peak controller, which is in this list here. Bam. Now something weird happens. We notice that A, the volume goes all the way down, and then B, it does the opposite of sidechaining. Well, opposite of ducking anyway. It is sidechained, but the ducking is happening oppositely, which is to say that when there's audio in the kick, there's audio in the ARP. We want the opposite. We want the audio in the kick to make the ARP quieter. So we need to invert the action. And there's a couple of ways to do this. And the most direct way is to just do it in the peak controller, because this knob, the volume knob, basically sets how loud, like how much influence the volume information has on the movement of the peak controller. And this is a 200% to -200% dial, where 0 is center. So we want to go to negative values. And then now still nothing's happening because the base is set to be at 0, which means that this is where this is going to set. So I want it to be where it was originally, which is like up here somewhere. And now we have sidechaining as we are used to seeing it. So our options for control include a decay option here. A tension setting. And of course the volume. And the bass is what sets the baseline for the whole shebang, which is pretty obvious. So inside the peak controller, there's also an LFO that you can use. And this LFO is accessible via the controller list, as you saw before. Now, what's cool about this LFO is that, as far as I'm aware, in FL, it's the fastest LFO. So if you wanted to do manually controlled ring modulation or FM, this would be the way to do it. It would pretty much only work on basses, since FM and RM are still way too fast for any oscillator to really control to at mid-range or high tones. But for low tones, something like 60 hertz, it's probably still able to do that with this controller here. And the way this guy works is it has the bass, like the other one, and then you have like a volume. And now the cool thing about this controller is that it actually oscillates independently of the track. It doesn't. It does its own thing pretty much forever. You see the speed is set at a ratio, which is kind of cool. It's got tension settings, and it's got a phase for a starting position of the oscillator shape. In oscillator shapes, we have a sine, a triangle, a square, a saw, and a random, which is basically just noise. So yeah. Now, the main reason why the peak controller is interesting versus using just a limiter to do sidechaining, because you can use a limiter to do just exactly what I did here. But the cool thing about the peak controller is that it translates the kick's volume data and turns that into a controller, which means you can link that to anything that can be linked to a controller, not just volume automation. You can link it to, say, an EQ position, like so. So if you wanted to, I sidechained using volume, but you could sidechain using a low pass filter, Like, okay, you should do that here. if I were to set this to be a low pass, steep, and set this guy to be peak controller. Yeah. That kind of automation and control is what you use the peak controller for, because it basically makes the kicks volume and makes that it takes the kicks volume and it makes that its own controller, and you can control anything with it. So that's why it's awesome. And this isn't limited to just sidechaining things using a kick. You can do it. You can link it to a voice and have that control things. You can link it to like a lead element, a vocal melody. Like this EQ business is actually something that I learned from BT, because this is the way it occurred to him to do. It wouldn't occur to me to do that, but the openness and the sort of just there's endless amounts of stuff you can do. You can link to the controller and do cool stuff. You can link a bass, just a normal bass. Oh yeah, that's another thing he did. He linked the sound of like a pad to a reverb, so that while the sound was playing, the reverb was off. But then when it stopped, the reverb came on, and it did that because of the peak controller. So like when the sound was on, the peak controller turned off the reverb, and then as the peak went back down, the reverb turned on slowly. So then they had like a release tail of reverb happening directly as a result of the peak controller. So try not to limit yourself to ideas when you're using the peak controller. Think of basically anything's existence, like in volume, can be applied as a controller to any parameter. That's pretty cool. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day.